This is chapter 10 of The Car. He nearly wet his pants. Waylon was looking over his shoulder and his eyes went wide, then tightened at the corners, and Terry turned. There was a black Ford pickup next to him, painted in primer, flat black, and rocketing along on tires that seemed higher than the whole cat. It apparently didn't have mufflers, or if it did, it had a cutout ahead of them. The noise was deafening, seemed to almost physically push at Terry as the truck roared alongside. He looked up, in the right seat. Looking down on him was a man wearing a t-shirt with a cigarette pack rolled up tight into the sleeve. He had short hair, almost none, and he looked down on Terry and flipped his finger and spit. They were doing about 60, and the wind took the spit away, but his meaning was clear. He turned and said something to the driver. Terry couldn't see across to the truck to the driver, then reached over in the seat and came up with a beer bottle. The truck accelerated until it was slightly ahead of Terry and Waylon. The man held the bottle up to his mouth, took a swig, and held the bottle upside down, smiling crookedly. "Kick it," Waylon said, yelling over the bellow of the truck. "Catch a gear and get out of here, now." Terry floored the cat and looked at the tech. They were near 3,000 RPM now, and it barely crawled forward. They were at too high a speed to accelerate without shifting down. If he dropped it in gear, it would redline. He shook his head. "It'll blow the engine." It was too late in any case. The man in the pickup flipped the bottle out of the truck window back at the cat. It seemed to come in slow motion, arching back, and for a moment Terry thought it was coming straight at his head. But at the last moment the bottle caught the steel top edge of the windshield and shattered back in Terry's face. He had barely enough time to close his eyes before the glass hit him, and when it did, reflex took over and he jerked the wheel of the cat down to the right. The cat left the road at 60, was airborne for 3 feet, then dropped into a ditch in a whipping sea of grass and dust. "Damn." Waylon reached for the wheel, trying to correct, but Terry had his eyes open almost at once and cut back to the left, then right, then left in decreasing swerves until the cat came to a stop in the middle of a ditch, sitting on the grass. The truck kept moving down the highway, and Waylon was out of the car almost before it stopped rolling and stepped out around to Terry's side. "Out!" The whole thing hadn't taken 10 seconds. Terry got out of the car and Waylon bent him over forward. "Are your eyes clear?" "Think so." "Yeah. Brush all the glass out of your hair and off your clothing." "What's the matter with those guys?" "Drunk rednecks, freaks, who knows?" "There are people in the world who don't want to be a part of the race." He looked down the road and his voice became quiet, almost like a whisper. "There went 2 of them." Terry cleaned his clothes. Then they went through the car and made sure all the pieces of glass were out of the seats. "Let's get it up on the road." Waylon moved back. "You drive and I'll push." Terry slid back into the seat and dropped it in low. Waylon didn't need to push. The ditch was dry and the wheels grabbed, and they were back up on the road in a moment. Waylon got back in and pointed down the road. "Let's go." Terry started, shifted to second, third, and fourth, and then looked at Waylon. "This is the way those guys went in the truck." Waylon didn't say anything but nodded. "Maybe we should try to avoid them?" This time Waylon looked. "Why?" "Because of what they did. They're dangerous." Waylon smiled. "Not really." Terry remembered the bottle crashing into the windshield frame, an inch higher and it would have killed him. That was dangerous enough. They had been driving while talking, and Terry saw a small farm town a mile or so ahead of them. He slowed. Somewhere he'd read that a lot of these towns were speed traps, or his dad said it was. It surprised him to think of it because it was the first time he'd thought of his parents since he started. except when Waylon had asked about them, and he didn't want to get a ticket. Closer, he saw that there was a gas station on the outside edge of town. Still closer, he saw that the black truck was in the gas station. He let the cat slow. Waylon had seen the truck as well, and he motioned toward it. Let's stop for gas. What? You need gas. Waylon pushed his guitar off to the side and unbuckled his seatbelt. Stop. Terry looked at the VDO gas gauge. It was still at 3/4 full. We don't need gas. Yes. Waylon looked at him, his eyes serious. We do. Stop there. This is insane, just looking for it, Terry thought. But there was something in Waylon's eyes, some force he did not understand, and without meaning to, he slowed and brought the cat up to the gas pump. You pump, Waylon said, sliding out of the car. I'll pay. Right, Terry thought. I'll pump. He shook his head. If you think I'm going to stay out here while you're in there... He left the car and followed. As it worked out, 8 or 10 steps behind Waylon. Waylon opened the front screen door to the gas station and walked inside like he didn't have a concern in the world. Terry stopped at the door, holding it open. He could see the inside because of light coming through a back window. There was a counter down the right side of the room with a cash register on top of it near the front door. 2 men stood next to the counter, one drinking a Bud, the other smoking a cigarette. Terry recognized the one smoking as the guy in the truck who had thrown the beer bottle. Another man, the owner or somebody who worked at the station, was in the back of the counter drinking a Coke. It was clear the 3 were friends, were talking and laughing, probably about the beer bottle and the cat. Too many, Terry thought. There are 3 of them. One of them is too many. 3 is an army. Don't do this. But none of it came out. He just watched. Waylon walked down along the counter, his arms swinging loosely at his sides. Well, look at this, the man with the cigarette said. It's them we were just telling you about, from the little kiddie car. He stood away from the counter and faced Waylon. Are you a couple of little kiddies? Waylon stopped. Terry could not see his face, but his voice sounded soft, almost sad. It can go either way, Waylon said. It's up to you. You can make it rough, or you can make it easy. The point is, you could have really hurt the boy. I think you should apologize, and we'll call it square. Apologize? Hell, I missed him, didn't I? What more do you want? Terry did not see exactly what happened next. Waylon seemed to move, a shrug that took his whole body, and there was a chunking sound, like meat being dropped on a counter, and the man went down holding his throat, blood running out of his nose and mouth. Waylon took a step forward, shrugged once more, and the second man from the truck went down as well. He was holding his knee, and also bleeding from the nose and mouth. Waylon looked at the man who owned the garage, who was still standing in back of the counter, a bottle of soda halfway to his mouth. Not 4 seconds had passed since Waylon had first shrugged. I wasn't part of it, the station owner said, raising his hands, waving them. Looks like they had it coming. Waylon nodded, moved back to where Terry stood by the door. You didn't get any gas, did you? Terry shook his head. What did you do to them? Waylon didn't answer. Instead, guided Terry out of the door and back to the car. I didn't even see you touch them, Terry said, following. You just shrugged or something, and they went down. How did you do that? But Waylon didn't speak, and continued to not say anything, even when they were on the road and moving at 65. He sat staring ahead while Terry drove, not saying anything, not smiling, not singing or whistling, just staring and sometimes shaking his head. Finally, just before dark, he looked at the atlas and leaned across the car. We'll keep going tonight. Drive all night. I'll take over when you get tired. But we need some work done on the car and me. What I did back there was wrong. We need to get to Omaha tomorrow to fix things. Just keep driving. Terry nodded. The light dimmed and he turned on the headlights, aimed the cat west, and let it roll, following the sunset. And I believe that's the end of chapter 10.